This session, bids have to be in by 3:15. If you have a silent auction item, please go downstairs on the 3:15 break and see if you won and buy your stuff and take it home. Thank you all for participating. If you haven't, sorry, I'm out of breath. There's a lot of stairs here. I'm just gonna take a breather. If you haven't bid on any of the silent auction items and you want to run down and do that, you've got one more opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're going to do a lunch and learn now. This is not accredited. Again, doesn't mean it's not good information. So we've got Kevin Kowitz with Holistic Industries, who's going to make a presentation on the history of medical cannabis. So Kevin, if you can come up here. This isn't in the way then? I was just worried that's in the way for filming.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kevin Kowitz. I am with Holistic Industries. I come from cannabis. I've been working cannabis since 2016. Sure. Kevin Kowitz. I work for Holistic Industries here in Kansas City. I come from cannabis starting in 2016. Holistic Industries has a 70,000 square foot building here where we grow and process cannabis medically and distribute it around the state. Today, my presentation is just on the history of medical cannabis. Marijuana or hemp. Cannabis. Marijuana basically became prevalent in the 1930s and has long been, cannabis has long been producing flowers. It's grown closer to the equator in warmer climates, and it's grown for medical and psychoactive properties. Levels of THC are much higher in cannabis than in hemp. Industrial hemp is a hardier plant due to growth in cooler climates, and it's grown for oils, fibers, and the chemical CBD. Commercial uses include rope, paper, omega vitamins, omega-4 vitamins, insulation material, and concrete additive. Today, Ernest Small found it impossible to scientifically tell the difference between cannabis and hemp. Despite this, he chose a distinctive factor. The distinguishing factor that legal frameworks regulating hemp and cannabis are built today. THC, cannabis plants with a THC level of more than 0.3% denote cannabis. Cannabis plants with a THC of less than 0.3% denote hemp. Something that's a little bit controversial, but cannabis is broken down into a few different species. Everyone knows sativas. Sativas grow tall, narrow leaf varieties of cannabis, and indicas are stout with broad leaf. And then hybrids are a mix of the two, indicas and sativas. Brief history of cannabis. Pharmaceutical companies have long used and marketed cannabis as tinctures, extracts, marketing a reliable fluid of extract or extractable cannabis. Many different varieties, different indicas. Eli Lilly produced a 1/4 pound solid cannabis extract. States became concerned with the safety of patent medicine. Patent medicines are proprietary medicines made and marketed under a patent and available without prescription. And cannabis was being used in that medicine. The Wiley Act of, The Wiley Act of 1906 attempted to establish uniform rules at the federal level for producing packaged cannabis. It didn't address the medicinal value of any patent medicine ingredients. An article shall be deemed misbranded if the package fails to bear a statement on the label regarding the quality or proportion of any alcohol, morphine, opium, cocaine, heroin, or cannabis inside of the package. Meanwhile, recreational cannabis use was on the rise, and the legislation of immoral activity was popular around this time. Cannabis was becoming a real political issue. In 1925, the first international treaty banning cannabis was adopted. Cannabis was being used recreationally. The economy took some significant downswings. The loss of jobs and the influx of immigrants who used cannabis recreationally were thought to be connected by influential people. Recreational cannabis use was increasing while unemployment was rising in the 1920s and 30s. And so influential people began to detest cannabis and blame it for crime, unemployment, and more. It was a complicated time. In 1930, The Federal Bureau of Narcotics was established, and Harry Anslinger was chosen to lead. He was a staunch supporter of the criminalization of the drug and cannabis prohibition. One important note was Anslinger was appointed by the Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon. Mellon had significant financial interests in the production of nylon, which can be used for many of the same commercial purposes as hemp, hence some of his negative feelings about cannabis and hemp. Anslinger worked to publish some sensational stories about cannabis and used his influence to impact the cannabis-related policy. In 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act passed, which made cannabis illegal unless an excise tax was paid for a specific medical or research purpose. In 1942, cannabis was removed from the U.S. pharmacopoeia, and it included hemp, because hemp is cannabis. Roosevelt issued an executive order so hemp could be grown and used to produce military goods during World War II, and then rescinded the order at the end of the war. In 1956, the Narcotics Control Act made cannabis a narcotic, and in 1970, cannabis became a Schedule I drug, so no medicinal value and no research. The one institute that had the authority from the federal government to grow cannabis for research was the Marijuana Project. It was established in 1968 to study the effects of cannabis on the mind and body. For 50 years, it's been the only institute that has had the privilege to grow cannabis legally. For now, the NIDA requested that they grow half their capacity, which is more than ever before. In August of 2016, the DEA announced that it would approve registrations for other qualified growers to produce and distribute cannabis. To this date, no registrations have been granted. So Schedule I, no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Marijuana is a Schedule I narcotic. Schedule II narcotics are cocaine, meth, hydromorphine, and oxycodone, which have a high potential for abuse, with use potentially leading to severe psychological or physical dependence. Interestingly, the American Medical Association adopted or opposed the Marijuana Tax Act. This was mostly about the taxes on physicians prescribing cannabis, pharmacists selling cannabis, cultivators growing cannabis, and manufacturing processing cannabis. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, in a 2013 CNN documentary on cannabis, said we have been terribly and systematically been misled for the past 70 years in regards to cannabis. Chemical components of cannabis. There are phytocannabinoids, which are THC and CBD, endocannabinoids, and synthetic cannabinoids. The endocannabinoid system helps regulate appetite, mood, memory, pain, and more. Your ECA system was discovered by a professional of medical chemistry, and the prefix endo means made in the body. The chemical components of cannabis. There are more than 120 cannabinoids. Like all chemicals or drugs, they can affect people differently. What makes people susceptible to side effect is not known. The first pure form of extractions, cannabinol extracted in 1899, CBD was extracted in 1963, and Delta-9 THC was extracted in 1964. Two of the most famous cannabinoids are CBD and THC. They have the same exact molecular structure, 21 carbon atoms, 30 hydrogen atoms, and 2 oxygen atoms. Delta-9 THC is the most psychoactive of all the cannabinoids, and CBD is not psychoactive. THC, the properties are the generally accepted properties, are the psychoactive properties, the therapeutic effects, the reduction of nausea and vomiting, appetite stimulation, pain reduction, muscle relaxation, and some sedative effects. And some adverse side effects are increased heart rate, coordination problems, anxiety, disorientation, and memory loss. All stereotypical. CBD is generally accepted as The therapeutic effects reduce anxiety, reduce depression. It's an anticonvulsant and anti-inflammatory. Inhibits the growth of cancer cells, the neuroprotective properties, and the positive influences side effect profile by THC. The adverse effects are some diarrhea, changes in appetite, and fatigue. How cannabis feels, the sativa effect. These are sort of stereotypical, but sativa affects the mind, increases appetite, elevates the mood, makes you a little bit energetic, reduces depression, relieves nausea, relieves headaches, makes you feel a little bit energized, and it's non-drowsy. The indica effects, the effects of the body, helps sleep or nighttime use, helps for relaxation, reducing anxiety, muscle relaxation, the reduction of headaches, anti-convulsing, anti-inflammatory, and pain reduction. How to use cannabis, the basics, products, dosing. How to use cannabis, oral injection, taking it through your mouth and into your body with a tincture or capsule or an elixir. Those effects are a little bit faster compared to an edible. It's an onset of about 15 to 40 minutes, and it's a duration of about 45 minutes to 2 hours. The quickest way to medicate is through inhalation, concentrates, flour, or oil. It's a rapid onset. Sometimes it's shorter. The effects are shorter lasting. The onset is 2 to 30 minutes, and the duration is about 2 to 3 hours. Taking it orally with edibles is a slower effect. It's longer lasting effects, 30 minutes to 2 hours, and the onset is 30 minutes to 2 hours, and the duration is 5 to 8 hours. And then there are topicals, ointments, lotions, and patches, which are absorbed through the skin. Cannabinoids have a biphasic property, so the optimal dose is key. Frequency of use depends upon the frequency of the symptoms. The tolerance can build over time and build differently depending on the cannabinoid, and tolerance plays a significant role in the amount of cannabis used. Tolerance develops faster with high-potency products, like concentrates. Dispensaries are not required to regulate dosage, cultivar, or administration. Multiple studies have shown that titration is critical for patients. Most medical cannabis patients and advocates believe strongly that physicians require a certain dose for their patients, probably don't understand medical cannabis. And medical cannabis is not a take two and call me in the morning scenario. It's very personal, and personal in terms of your endocannabinoid system and your body. It's good to advise if after several weeks the medical cannabis is working, stop to see if it's still needed. Take for 6 days and then take a break to see how that reacts. Take it for 4 weeks and take a week break, see how you react to that. An herbal holiday or a tolerance break, as we call it in our facility, is recommended to mitigate long-term effects and reduce tolerance. And say for every 2 to 3 weeks, you should take a break 2 to 3 weeks for every 3 to 4 months of continuous use, or 5 to 7 day break for every month. Signs of consuming too much cannabis may be severe pupil dilation, increased heart rate for up to 6 hours, feeling cold or anxious, shortness of breath, depression, hallucinations. THC overdose incidents usually consist of panic reactions or toxic psychosis, and you should call a physician or go to an emergency. Can other cannabis components help in this regard? Research on CBD is promising. Interaction with other medications. Generally, cannabis does not show a negative interaction with other meds. With opioids, for example, it can actually have a synergistic effect, lowering the amount of required opioids to achieve the same effect. High doses of CBD temporarily deactivate a family of enzymes in the liver needed to metabolize many different medications on the pharmaceutical market. This family of enzymes is called cytochrome P450, And this is particularly an issue with blood thinning agents like warfarin. Something very important to us in our grow facility and processing our contaminant testing. Everything that we grow and process has to go through all the testing protocols set forth by the state. We do pesticide analysis, in which our group doesn't add any pesticides. We test for microbials, for impurities, water activity, residual solvent testing, heavy metal screens, moisture content, and foreign matter inspection. This ensures that the products that we produce in our grow and in our lab get to the market and without any impurities. Then there's potency testing. Everything that comes out of our grow or our processing lab has a certificate of analysis, or COA, which denotes the following: concentrations, THC, THCA, CBD, CBDA, CBG, and CBN. We also, unique to some, we test for all of the terpenes so that every customer knows exactly what is in the product that they're receiving. The different terpenes produce different smells, different aromas, and different feelings. And all of the products, the THC, the CBD, and all of the terpenes produce sort of an entourage effect that help to medicate. The dispensary experience in Missouri. Holistic Industries has one grow and processing site. It's in south of Kansas City in Grandview. As I said, it's a 70,000 square foot building with 30,000 square feet of canopy. And we distribute to dispensaries throughout the state, and our dispensaries, vertically integrated, are Liberty dispensaries. The Liberty dispensaries have educated budtenders and an array of products to serve all the medical needs. Obtaining medical cannabis in Missouri. Missouri is a medical state, so cannabis is, you have to have a medical card to obtain cannabis in Missouri. The steps to do that are: one, you have to speak to your doctor regarding the use and possible benefits of medical marijuana or cannabis. Step two is submitting a complete patient or caregiver application using the secure online MMP patient registry. It's accessed by the DHSS, which regulates all cannabis activity here in the state. And then you visit a medical cannabis dispensary once approved. Holistic Industries has four dispensaries here in the state: Liberty Kansas City, Liberty Columbia, Liberty Rolla, and Liberty in St. Louis. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.